Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Inside the Birds TV with Adam Kaplan and Jeff Mosher, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. We've got a special ITB TV with you. We've been hinting toward it. There's no special guests. It's just going to be Adam Kaplan, myself, and really this is all about Adam's annual training camp tour. Got a little postponed last year because of COVID, and even with the way things are now, Adam found a way to make it on his tour this year. So congratulations to you, Adam. You've made several stops. We've got a lot of different teams we're going to talk about. And this should be really fun because we're going to approach this not only from an NFL standpoint, get your thoughts on non-Eagles teams, but also some fantasy football we'll throw in there because I'm sure you've seen some young ascending players that you want to talk about. We're not going to go in – well, we will go in order, right? In order of how you've gone or just kind of in order of –
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Because I know one of your very first trips was down to our nation's capital to see the rival Washington football team. Still have yet to announce a name other than football team. Mm-hmm. And I want to get your thoughts on this team because this is a team, obviously, that is trying to become the first NFC East team, Adam, to repeat since the 2003-2004 Philadelphia Eagles did. That is hard to believe because that's about 17 years ago since it happened. But that team last year was on the come up and growing with that defense. They've made some additions on offense. What stuck out to you when you were down there watching their practice?
I would say that it's kind of what, on the surface, what everybody thinks. Their front seven, particularly their front four, I just have not seen a front four with this much talent in terms of first-round picks. And their depth is really good. But Chase is obviously going to be a star. Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen signed a big extension. Montez Sweat, who I would say it is not – he probably won't be a star. He's a good football player, but he's a big guy, strong. Mm-hmm. And their backups are good in the interior. Matt Ioannidis has been a great story. And Tim Settle is a good player. Casey Toohill, by the way, former Eagle draftee, is on their team. I saw him get some snaps with the second and the third team. So they've got really good depth. They've got versatility. They're a 43 front, but they can do some things with their guys. And they got Jamin Davis. You and I talked about him with Greg Cosell, who's they're going to move him around. Certainly could cover. He's today's NFL linebacker, early rounds. You got to be able to cover, and he'll cover. So this is their defense will lead them, no question about it. They're just tremendous questions on their offensive line. They've got issues at tackle. I think that's to me where if you're a Washington football team fan, for them to win a division, as Jeff said, for the first time in 17 years, is it? Or would it be 18?
Well, would be the 17th season.
Okay.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. I don't know. What does that mean, by the way? Is it ineptitude? Is the division competitive? I don't know what to make of that. It's just ridiculous, but I don't know what to make of it.
The only thing I make of it is if you won the division, don't get too comfortable.
Right. Okay.
Well, I mean, I think it also speaks to the fact that I think overall there has not been a prolonged stretch of dominant quarterback play in this division since Donovan McNabb. Mm-hmm. Dak Prescott got hurt last year. He probably has the best opportunity to do that, but he's certainly not a guy who's made 6 or 7 Pro Bowls, right? We know Washington has gone through quarterbacks almost like the Browns over the last few years, just recycling quarterback. Same thing with the Giants after Eli, retired. Then you go to Daniel Jones, but even Eli's last 4, 5, 6 years were not so great. And of course, the Eagles have been on a couple of different quarterbacks over the last 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, and then protection with that when you talk about the quarterbacks. Look, the left tackle's a problem. Charles Leno, the Bears didn't want him. The Bears' offensive line, we'll get to them later, is not very good. Charles Leno is a guy that they released, didn't want him back, as I understand it. They wouldn't have given him a pay cut. They just didn't want him back. So you wonder if he could revive his career. He was a serviceable player for many years. Cornelius Lucas, who filled in very well at right tackle last season. He's what he is a guy that he'd be better as your sixth lineman than a starter. But he was on the COVID list for 2 weeks. He just came off a couple of days ago. Mm-hmm. Cosme, you and I have talked about Sam Cosme, the second rounder out of Texas. Right now he's competing for that right tackle job. We know that Brand Sheriff's a stud at right guard. The problem with him is he's missed, I think, 15 games over the last 3 seasons, something like that. So that's why they could not get an extension done with him. They just felt it would be hard to figure out what to pay him. So he got tagged. And Chase Roullier is a good center. Left guard, I think it'll wind up being Eric Flowers, who they traded for from Miami. Wes Schweitzer's also there. I mean, it's a very average line overall. And then, you mentioned quarterback. Fitzpatrick is going to be the starter. I understand it's an open competition. You saw Taylor Heineke. It's been a really remarkable story. A guy that was an undrafted free agent. I saw many years ago at East West Shrine Week. I thought he was awful. Mm-hmm. I got to give Scott Turner credit. I mean, he's had him in 3 places. This is his guy. He had in Minnesota, Carolina, and here. And he did a good job. That Tampa Bay game, you remember, that was the one game where you're like, whoa.
Yeah, the only problem is that it's one game. I mean,
I know
a whole lot was made off of that one game.
It's true. It's true.
We've seen that happen to a billion quarterbacks come in, look good, and then they get the longer sample size, and it's not
exactly. That's baseball. That's in all sports. It's it's that per minute average in the NBA. Yeah, it all sounds good when he's coming off the bench, but when he's got to start for 50 games, then tell me how good he is.
Right. I remember Matt Flynn throwing the 6 touchdowns for the Packers, getting the big contract for the Seahawks, and then Russell Wilson beating him out immediately. So
exactly. Right. You got a good memory, man. That was 9 years ago. Exactly.
Oh man, I can go back to Rob Johnson. I think having a really great preseason game for somebody, and then the Bills signing. Yeah, and then the Bills signed him to a big deal, right?
Exactly. Rob Johnson was a good athlete, but you just mentioned it was that one game, crazy game, back and forth, super huge scoring game. Was surprising because it was the infancy of the Baltimore great defense, and he got that contract. But getting back to Heineke, he is talking to Scott Turner at training camp. He's a really good athlete, way better than not Fitzpatrick can move, but Heineke's a pretty good athlete. If you remember 3 years ago when Cam Newton was having problems with his right shoulder, he was their designated thrower on third down when they needed to throw it over 20 yards.
Right.
He was that guy, but he's a better backup. So good for him. He was out of football for a little bit. To me, the story of it for Washington's their offensive line. Can they protect? Can Antonio Gibson now be a full-time running back? Yes. The answer is yes. He did a great job last year. Actually, Turner told me that they knew within a week or so, week to 10 days, that it was obvious he had to be the guy. And we had Ryan Silverfield on, his head coach at Memphis,
right,
who explained how what did he say? When they got him from the community college, he was a 235-pound slot receiver.
Yeah, it's almost like they didn't know what to do with him.
Right, exactly. He only had 30-some-odd carries, but he looks like he's going to be a stud. And the biggest story last year, well, when I say biggest, the most surprising story was J.D. McKissick, who was this journeyman running back, a passing down back, hit over 100 targets. I don't see that happening now that Gibson will be their full-time back, particularly in passing situations. Mm-hmm. And then one guy I want to mention before we get the defense with him is Jarrett Patterson, who is about 5'6.5" from University of Buffalo, is an undrafted free agent. He's got a real shot to make it. He's been one of the really good stories of camp for them.
Interesting.
He's number 35 if you're a Washington fan. Keep an eye on him. And then we talk about defense. Overall, this is a well-oiled machine. I just don't think they're going to be great because of their issues on the offensive line. But Diami Brown, who we talked about with Greg Cosell in our pre-draft shows, he's their third-round pick out of Carolina at receiver, is very talented. Curtis Samuel, though, unfortunately, he's still in PUP. He has not practiced yet, and he was on the COVID list as well. And he had a groin injury from their OTAs, so he's still out. That's not good, and that's where they need to get better. But Adam Humphries has a real chance to be their slot receiver. You might remember him. He played for Tampa with also Fitzpatrick. They were together there in Tampa.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing about Washington's defense, Adam, that's going to be their I guess, obviously it's going to be their bread and butter, but I would say it's not just their front four, because as you mentioned, Jamin Davis at the linebacker level, but you go to that secondary, Cameron Curl, a big Greg Cosell favorite, really emerged as a safety. They'll get Landon Collins back, so that's a pretty good safety tandem right there. They brought William Jackson in from the Bengals. Most people think that that's an upgrade over Ronald Darby, who had a good year, and they have Kendall Fuller as well. So probably the best defense in the division from top to bottom, and maybe a top 3, top 5 type of defense in the NFL.
I would agree, and I would say the Giants, who we'll talk about briefly. The Washington's, the only issue that I have is Landon Collins is more of a box player. Mm-hmm. He's signed an enormous contract, and I mean, we know he's had some injuries, but I think what they did is overpay for a box player. I don't think he's nearly as good as his contract with the Jets. It's a great contract and good job as agent. I just don't think he's that good. Right. Carl's, what a story is a 7th-round pick. And St. Juste is a corner who's a 3rd rounder who I really like, and he's from Minnesota, just over 6'3". We saw some tall corners get drafted, by the way. Usually, you don't want your corner over 6'1" because those guys have trouble turning their hips, but he's good. They're way deeper at corner. They moved Troy Apke, you might remember, from Penn State to corner. He ran in the 4-4s. I'm told they did that actually in OTAs. Mm-hmm. So you're right. You're right. Absolutely right. Their defense is going to be solid. It's, to me, could Fitzpatrick, the story for them, folks, A, could they protect Fitzpatrick? And B, could they actually be even a mid-level offensive line? I have my questions there.
Good. Fair enough. Fair enough. We will find out because we'll see them twice a year. Let's talk about the Eagles' preseason opener opponent, the Pittsburgh Steelers. A lot of newness for them, right? First, they kind of buck their normal tradition and they take a running back in the first round. I don't think they'd done that since Rashard Mendenhall. And then before that, you'd probably have to go back even longer.
Franco?
So yeah, right? So they take Rashard Mendenhall. But really the big thing is they have a new offensive coordinator, Matt Canada. He was the quarterback's coach last year. How would you, from what you saw, describe what their offensive makeup might look like in comparison to the Randy Fichtner offensive last year, which was very dink and dunk?
By the way, and I knew this would happen. You're going to laugh, but I wanted to make sure I was right. Walter Abercrombie was a first rounder in 1982 who went in his career as an Eagle. He was a first rounder, though.
Okay.
Out of Baylor. Yeah, I knew they had at least one other guy, and Mendenhall's a good call by you, but I knew there was another guy, and Abercrombie would be that guy. I just remember the name. It was such a very unique name. I would say with Pittsburgh, Canada, it's really funny that I was reading up on him before I spoke to him, and I guess he's been fired some, but he's also did incredibly well. He had a run of the best runs in college football history. There was like 6 or 7 week run that he had. It might have been at Maryland. It was either Maryland or Wisconsin or LSU. I don't remember which one of the stops, but they were averaging over 50 points per game. His philosophy, it's really interesting. It starts with a run game. Randy Fichtner, their former OC, was more of a pass game guy. Although Fichtner did tell him when he coached at Memphis, he coached D'Angelo Williams, but they were way too pass happy. And now remember, Roethlisberger had a reconstructive elbow surgery last year. Now he's 100%, and they were throwing the ball downfield. But with Canada, it all starts with a run game. And I didn't know this, he coached at Wisconsin. He coached Melvin Gordon. And they had a 3-man backfield there. And I asked him about Najee Harris. He goes, look, it all comes down to what you think your guy is. Well, I think Harris is a feature back. I think we would agree with that. Mm-hmm. So it's going to revolve around him. He coached Anthony McFarland, another guy he coached at Maryland, who's an explosive changeup. So it'll start with a run game. But the problem is their offensive line, I'm telling you right now, they're bottom 5. They're just not very talented. Remember, DeCastro's cut.
Right.
He may or may not play again. He's had some issues injury-wise. The right tackle.
No more Pouncey, correct? Pouncey's
right. He's gone. Yeah. He's gone. He's gone. Retired.
Right.
Zach Banner's come back from a torn ACL. He got hurt in the Giant game week 1. Trey Turner's not played good football in 3 years. He used to be really good, but the Chargers cut him. Talking to the Panthers, they didn't want him 2 years ago. They moved him. Now, Kendrick Green is an interesting player, played at Illinois, who's probably the top center prospect for the draft, though he was mostly a guard. They're just kind of in transition, the offensive line. We know they're great at receiver. We mentioned Harris. Roethlisberger's back now physically. They'll throw it down the field more. And then, the issue for them is, Jeff, on defense, their front seven will be terrific. Mm-hmm. Opposite Joe Hayden, who's also older, they're just not. I don't think they're going to be that good at corner. They brought back Cam Sutton. They re-signed him to a long-term deal. He hasn't been a full-time starter, so there are issues there. Remember, they lost Mike Hilton and Steven Nelson. So that to me is, if you're going to play, if you could protect, throw out the guy whoever's going to be opposite Hayden.
Yeah, I worry less about that than their offensive line, just because they have kind of a history of finding cornerbacks or even producing cornerbacks, because they get such great pressure with their front seven and their philosophy. But you're right. They also have a very storied history of loading up on the offensive line and using a lot of high picks. And you look at that offensive line right now, they remind me a little bit of the AFC North version of Washington, where they've got playmakers. They've got a very good defense, potentially great defense, but that offensive line could really hold them back.
It is. That to me, with an older quarterback, I mean, I had to look this up. I forgot. He is 39, Roethlisberger. I'm so old. I remember being at the Senior Bowl. His then agent, Lee Steinberg, brought him there just to be around NFL people. He's a really good physical shape, Big Ben. But you're right, man. That offensive line is a problem. There's a common theme in the National Football League now. These teams that don't have good offensive lines. Joe Banner told me this years ago, and he talked about this on ITB TV last year with us, is that it starts with the offensive defensive lines. And Kevin Colbert is a great GM. He's top 5, maybe top 3. But I'm very surprised that he let this thing go to this point. This will keep them out of the Super Bowl. There's no way in hell this is a Super Bowl team with this offensive line.
Makes you wonder what he's got, because as you said, he's a very prepared GM, very smart GM. Makes you wonder if he's got something up his sleeve, either around the waiver cut down or something else to improve that offensive line. Because if it's just a good offensive line, the Steelers are a Super Bowl contender, no doubt about that.
Good point. I agree.
Real quick before we move on, I just want to know, while you were there, Deontay Johnson is a guy who NFL people tell me they think is an elite wide receiver when he catches the ball. He obviously has an issue. I know you could say that about anybody, but what they're basically saying is everything else about him, he has the makings of being an elite wide receiver in this league. When you were there, did he seem to catch the ball?
Yeah, he did. In fact, the thing that was noticeable, they were throwing it past 20 yards, because last year they really weren't throwing it past 20 yards because the Roethlisberger was coming off the reconstruction of his elbow. But Freiermuth is there. They're their second round tight end, who I should probably mention. Their pass target group is incredible. Deontay Johnson is a really good football player. He's way better than his average per catch. I think they'll stretch the field more. But the guy I want to mention, who Eagle fans unfortunately got to learn about the hard way, is Chase Claypool. Yeah, absolutely right. You're right. He's an absolute stud. He destroyed their defense, the Steeler defense, in the red zone. They couldn't handle him. Him and Metcalf are just absolute studs. And Claypool, I think, has got a little bit more versatility, because DK Metcalf has trouble throttling down. He's more of a vertical. You got to run him. You got to keep him moving 40. He's not a guy who's going to stop and start like Claypool can, but he's going to be a stud, no doubt. And they are legit 5 deep. They like this Ray McLeod, who's number 14. But they're good. Obviously they're going to be really good, and that's a tough division, man. With the Browns being as good as they are, it's a 3-man race, a 3-team race enough for the division.
No doubt about it. We'll talk about the Browns. It'll shock me if Kevin Colbert doesn't do something before the start of the season on the offensive line, because they have a really good shot at going far if they have a better offensive line. Last year, the Browns, you were out in Cleveland. This is I saw you joke on Facebook, the quote, new favorite for the NFC or AFC North, I think you said, because they believe in themselves, gave a big contract to Nick Chubb. I'm really curious about what you saw about this camp with Baker Mayfield, because last year they kind of treated him with kid gloves, and they started to open up a little bit there at the end of the year. Is this going to be a little bit more open of an offense now for Baker, or are they going to just continue to ground?
It's a great question, because it's funny you say that, because the way that I look at this offense is very similar to the way that Sean McVay coached Jared Goff. It's a highly programmed offense. There's not a lot of wiggle room in it. It's the zone stretch, or as Stefanski calls it, the wide zone. He's running elements of Norv Turner's offense, and he's also running elements of Gary Kubiak's wide zone, or whatever the Shanahan system of the zone stretch.
Sure.
Nick Chubb's an incredible football player. I'll get back to Mayfield in a second, but Nick Chubb, he had 3 long touchdown runs of probably over 50 yards in one of the 2 practices I was at. Here's what he does, which is incredible. He squeezes the hole, and he gets so low. I mean, he's built, he's built up physically, but he just squeezes it, and he hits it, and he just got tremendous vision. When he sees it, he sets his blockers up fine, like Kareem Hunt does, but he's just explosive for a guy his size. He's pretty cool to see him up.
Feet too, Adam. I mean, you see those cuts. He has ballerina feet. I mean, he makes the crispest, sharpest cuts. He's got some really special skills.
He does. I totally agree with you. And get back to Mayfield. It works because Stefanski knew, first of all, he had Chubb and Hunt, so you kind of have to go through the run game anyway. But with the talent that they have there, you knew it had to be a 12 personnel offense. And now that Landry's back, Beckham's back, his former college teammate at LSU. It's really not going to matter all that much. I'll throw a little bit more, but it's still going to go through the run game, play action, roll out left, roll out right. Mayfield is doing better with off-script plays, the so-called second reaction plays when the pocket breaks down. But it's a highly programmed offense where they're not going to ask him to do a ton. It's really smart coaching by Stefanski, because he knows what happened was, as I understand it, they put way too much on Mayfield's plate 2 years ago under Freddie Kitchens, and he failed miserably. It goes to the run game. I was joking with one of their coaches when I was at practice one of the days. I said, am I wrong? Does this look exactly the same? He goes, have you seen our tight ends? Because why wouldn't we why won't we keep doing the same thing? I'm like, okay, I get it.
Right.
And Njoku and Harrison Bryant, who they really like, and of course, Austin Hooper.
Yeah. I still have the flashbacks of Baker Mayfield overthrowing Hooper in the end zone on a 5-yard play, but by miles. So we'll see if this is a better year for him. Obviously, it could be a big contract year for Baker Mayfield. How about the defense? We know they have a pretty decent defensive line. What about that secondary that, they always seem to have box safeties? Did they improve their versatility in the back end?
You nailed it. That was the problem last year because remember, that's why they signed John Johnson, formerly of the Rams.
Oh, right. Good player.
He's really gifted. Ronnie Harrison was a great, they traded for him from Jacksonville. He was a great story. He was playing a nickel. Delpit's coming back from an Achilles and another injury in training camp. But they're deeper at safety, but where they're better if everybody could get healthy is at corner. Denzel Ward's terrific. Greg Newsome has a very good chance to start on the outside. First round. You and I talked about him in our pre-draft shows. Greedy Williams from LSU, he missed all of last season. Troy Hill, formerly of the Rams, is a good backup corner. And MJ Stewart could play nickel. They're way deeper at corner. Greedy Williams has just got to play better. He did not. He's a guy that needs to he's not the most physical corner. There's a knock on him. They're better at linebacker. Anthony Walker's going to be fine from his knee injury. When I was there, I'd heard it wasn't bad, and he's actually back on the field. So they're better at linebacker. They're really well coached at linebacker with Jason Tarver and Ben Bloom, who came over from the Cowboys. They just need to give them better talent, and they've got that. So and Clowney, by the way, I should mention this. Mm-hmm. I don't want to say he was great, but when I was there, he was moving pretty well. They still have depth issues on at D end and D tackle. Malik Jackson, they have depth, but it's just not a great. It's just not a great D line. I think overall, obviously Garrett's an absolute stud, but I don't think it's a great defensive line. That to me is in the end going to be the issue with them. Mm-hmm. They're not getting anything out of Tack McKinley. He's not available. And Clowney at 28, you just have to ask yourself, what can he ever get back to what he once was? It's been a while. And as Greg Cosell told us when we talked about him on ITB TV in the spring, he's just not a very good football player anymore. It's a pass rusher. Can he get back to doing that? That's the question.
Hard to believe he's just 28. It feels like he's been around for quite a long time.
I know.
Do you feel like the Browns will be in it?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I just wonder, though, did they overachieve last year?
That's why I'm asking that question. Yeah. Are they the type of team that you can see going right back to being a 6 to 7 win team?
No.
I feel like they've got too much talent up front, especially that offensive line and running game. And I like what Kevin Stefanski's done.
Yes, and they're very well coached. And Alex Van Pelt, I know he doesn't call the plays, but he does a good job as the OC, is helping manage Mayfield. And Stefanski's relationship with Mayfield has been really, really good. So, overall, yeah. Their line, by the way, is top 3. They're all back. Wyatt Teller, they got him a couple years ago from Buffalo, who's a really good athlete at guard, number 77. He had a pretty significant calf strain that limited him last year, but he's really good. Tretter's good. Batonio's a stud. Mm-hmm. Jedrick Wills is good at left tackle, and Conklin's solid. They have okay depth. So yeah, If Malik Jackson has something left of the tank, now he's in his 30s. Andrew Billings, 99. Oh, my goodness gracious. He's a big dude. He is wide. Your guy, his D tackle for them, number 61. I know you love this guy, Damian Square. Your guy.
Oh, big Damian Square, the king.
Yeah. He's still doing it. He's like 32 years old, man.
Yeah, good player. A good guy, too. Excellent guy.
Yeah.
All right, let's move away from the Midwest. We'll go over to the West Coast, where you got to see some of those West Coast teams and the Dallas Cowboys who practice out there. Before we talk about that, download the DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and use that promo code ITB. You'll get $200 in free bets when you place a $1 bet on any college football game. That's it, just a $1 bet on any college football game, and you can get $200 in free bets using that promo code ITB on the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app. All right, so you were out in California. You got the chance, I believe, to check out a combined practice that involved the Rams and the Cowboys, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So let's talk about both of those teams, starting with the Cowboys. Now, Dak, I think, was still on the shelf at the time. Yeah,
he's right. He's got the shoulder strain, his muscles. It's an odd place. Mm-hmm. He's hoping to practice next week. Cooper didn't work then. He's come back from ankle surgery, but he's back now working and practice. He came off PUP.
Right.
they're clearly going to have to be a 11 personnel offense. They've always been 12, but they're going to have to be. They started transfer to that to 11 before Dak got hurt. He was going to set every team record. He was headed for over 40 touchdown passes and over 5,000 yards before he got hurt. I mean, now part of it is because their defense was so bad.
Yes,
they had to throw. And he was, by the way, he was great for fantasy. I'm in a dynasty league for folks who don't, or casual fantasy players. That's where you keep almost all of your players. Where a keeper league, you keep maybe a couple. Mm-hmm. But what I would tell you is that they are so loaded in offense. They're legit 5 deep. It's not just Gallup. CeeDee Lamb had a very good practice, and Cooper. Cedric Wilson's a good backup. Noah Brown's decent, and a guy that I know Cosell likes, Simi Fehoko from Stanford, is a big. I'm sorry.
I said, God bless you.
Yeah, exactly. From Stanford is a big possession receiver who had a minor injury, so he wasn't working. So they have depth there. Now, their issues on offense, the only real one to me is they've got at left tackle Tyron Smith, who's had a big injury history with a back. He's in his 30s now. You worry about that. But Biadash is their new center, who was a 4th rounder last year out of Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. So we have to see how he plays. And Collins is fine. He's who's the right tackle, who used to play guard, but he's playing right tackle now. Zach Martin's there, and Connor Williams. So they'll be very good. But I do worry about Tyron Smith's back. And, do they have a capable backup? They've got Ty Nsekhe, who's been around forever. I remember him in the Arena Football League. He's 35 years old, a big guy. And then Brandon Knight, who I know they like as a developmental backup. So and then obviously if Prescott gets hurt again, you saw what Ben DiNucci wasn't ready, Cooper Rush, and Garrett Gilbert is not bad, but they've got a real problem, man. If Prescott's got to miss 6 or 7 games, they're done. They ain't going to get done.
Yeah, it's interesting because last year they seemed to prioritize backup quarterback by signing Andy Dalton, but this year, I don't know, maybe they were happy with what they saw from Garrett Gilbert last year. I thought he did a lot better job than Ben DiNucci and probably what Cooper Rush would have done, but I don't know that if I want to win 3 or 4 games, as you mentioned, with Dak Prescott out, that I can rely on Garrett Gilbert to win to do that. So it's weird how they never prioritize backup, did for a year, and then don't again. So we'll see if that impacts them.
Right, and Dalton was going to come back anyway, because even if they offered him a contract because he wanted to start. Mm-hmm. So and we'll get to the Bears in a sec, but defensively, my issues with them, like, they're going to be really good at linebacker with Parsons and Jalen. Jalen Smith's got to bounce back. He's got to play better. They're going to play Keanu O'Neal sort of as a box safety / a linebacker.
Right.
Van Der Esch with his neck, I mean, he's very talented, but he's got to stay on the field. They're super deep at corner now. Between Anthony Brown, who's more of a nickel, Trayvon Diggs, Stefan's brother, is really talented. Jordan Lewis, who's sort of a nickel, sort of a hybrid player. Kelvin Joseph, the second round of out of Kentucky, and then yet another tall corner who they drafted, Nashawn Wright, who's done some good things. He's 6'4", number 40 in your program.
What I saw in that preseason, that Hall of Fame game, he really stood out.
There you go. Yeah, he was standing right in front of me, and I thought he was a receiver. I'm like, who is number 40? And I'm like, oh, it's Nashawn Wright. Okay, I know who this guy is.
Yeah.
So they're young, they're deeper. Now, how talented they are, they're a little better. Their safety's still a problem for them. KZ comes over. He, of course, was coached by Dan Quinn with Atlanta. He was chirping the whole practice, man. That practice when Deshaun beat them, by the way. Deshaun beat him on a over route. He beat him for 50 yards. But Devontae KZ 35 was talking that practice. Darian Thompson, you might remember. Malik Hooker, by the way, is there. He wasn't really working yet, but they're deeper. They just have question marks. Can these guys play consistent football? But they certainly have depth.
Adam, Ezekiel Elliott, it kind of like Clowney, feels like he's been around forever. He's only 26 years old. And there were some reports that he looked like he came back in way better shape than last year. We saw last year he had just a very strange year, fumbling uncharacteristically, just not good. And I think people have knocked him. He used to always be, from a fantasy standpoint, top 2, top 3, top 4. Yeah. And I've seen his name kind of, up and down. Do you expect more of a bounce back year for him with as long as Dak and the line are pretty healthy? Is he still going to be an elite running back?
Yeah, it's funny. John Hansen said to me on our fantasy show, he called him a front runner. He loses Dak, arguably his best friend on the team, and he starts fumbling. It's funny you brought up the fumbling because it was so bizarre. He'd never been a fumbler. And
No, never. This was
it was like, is he losing his confidence? Like, what is going on with this guy?
Right. What did you see? I mean, did you see a guy who looked like he was in a much better shape and ready to
Yeah,
go?
he did. Yeah, he didn't practice a lot. I'm seeing this. I mentioned this before. I'm seeing this a lot. Like a lot of part of it is because teams have, and as I saw here, they've joined practices. And Dallas has 4 preseason games, not 3, because they're in the Hall of Fame game. But I'm seeing like skill position players, like veterans, they're not practicing the whole time because you don't need to.
No, but September football is going to suck. No one's going to care because we love football and it's back. Yeah. But September football is really going to suck.
Well, you mean offensively?
I mean, it was last year for a lot of teams too, and we'll see.
Well, we have more practice time, and we've got preseason games. But look, the defenses are typically ahead of the offense. Dallas is going to be good.
Right.
Now the question is, does the offense have to carry the defense? Time will tell.
All right, who do you feel better about right now after seeing Dallas and Washington? Because I feel like those are the teams that most people feel like they have to decide between.
Man, Dallas is so much better at quarterback. Although we know Fitz magic could happen.
Yeah, it's offense versus defense, isn't it?
It is. Although Washington's offense, they've added some talent. I love Gibson at running back. Logan Thomas has been a great story.
Yeah.
It's so tight. We'll do our divisional picks at the end of the month, or maybe the first week of September.
Yeah, I won't pin you down now. I was just curious which.
Yeah, I'm struggling. No, it's a great question. I'm just struggling. I don't know how to pick between the two of them. Now the Rams, I like the Rams more than Dallas. They're going to be better.
I've got the Rams as a potential Super Bowl candidate.
It's a good one.
Like them. Their defense is rock solid.
Good, but we'll get to their secondary in a second. They got a little of an issue in the secondary. Hang on one second here.
All right. I mean, obviously they made the move to get Matthew Stafford. They bring in Deshaun, who I'm positive of this. He will be as healthy as he's been in 3 years, simply because he's A, not an Eagle, and B, home in LA, right? And you talk about front runner type players, guys who seem to do well when things are going well, and then the reverse when not. I mean, he's on a team that's kind of built to win right now.
They are.
And listen, if I'm in round like 11 of my fantasy football draft, and you're kind of getting to the bottom there, I'm looking at Deshaun. I like it.
I would. I tried it last year and it didn't work. I rolled snake eyes because he was constantly hurt. But you're right, because he's from that area. Mm-hmm. And what I'm told is Sean McVay did a major recruiting job. As soon as the Eagles cut him, within a week he called him because they worked together with Washington, and he recruited him, and he got it done. Deshaun will still make over $4 million this season. It's ridiculous for this guy's injury history. Good job by his agent, but they are they're up with Dallas in terms of deepest pass target group. Robert Woods is terrific, who changed his number. It was kind of odd. Like they give you, as you know, going to practice, they give you a lineup sheet. I'm like, wait a minute, isn't that Robert Woods? No, it's Van Jefferson. Jefferson's 12 and Robert Woods is 2. Cooper Kupp's great. He used to be 18. He's now 10. He's amazing. And I'll tell you what, within 30 seconds, so Matthew Stafford is warming up right in front of me. In fact, I wasn't sure if he was going to practice. He was the last guy to take the field. He does this warm up with like these like metal silver balls, like very heavy, and he's going like this, and he's twerking his arm. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm like, he throws some different platforms. He's actually doing that. He's like doing it like this. So he goes out and he's warming up. I'm like, okay, good. He's gonna practice today. Great, because I want to see what happens here. And I'm telling you, the first 2 or 3 throws, I already see the difference between Stafford and Goff. Goff got to be manipulated in the pocket. They got to move him. They got to move the pocket for him. Stafford, they don't do any of that. He just drops backs and throws hard. He throws into traffic, and you see the juice in the ball. There's no movement on the ball. It's line drives. There's no tail on it. There's no wobble. I mean, this dude is throwing BBs, and you see Kupp, Sean Jefferson's son, Deshaun, as you mentioned. Tutu Atwell, who made a big-time play.
Oh, boy, Tutu F. All 5'6", 120 pounds of him, huh?
Right, he's 145 to 150. And then they like this Ben Skowronek, who's a tall kid, 6'3" out of Notre Dame for you draftniks, who I don't know if he'll make it. It'll be tough because they have a lot of receivers on the roster. But he's really good. They think he's got a chance to make it. Now, their offensive line is good, not great. The tackles, they're good. Andrew Whitworth, why he's still in the league. His arms have got to be 36 inches. It's huge, long.
How old is he now? He's got to be, 38?
Yeah, I think he's 39. He turns 40 in December.
Boy, he's telling Jason Peters to eat his shorts, man.
Right, right. He's healthier. No, Whitworth has had his injuries the last couple of years, but Austin Corbett, didn't he go to Penn State?
Austin Corbett, yes.
Yeah, yeah. So that's look. The Browns. It's funny. They didn't like him after year one. They traded him after a year to the Rams, and he's been a good start at right guard. Havenstein's back at right tackle. Their interior is very average, but Corbett's a better than average player. He's done a nice job. They'll be fine. They're and I'll tell you what, tight end. I love Tyler Higbee, 89. Who didn't do as well as people thought he would do last year because they don't throw the tight ends very much. But they might now that Stafford's there. And this kid, Jacob Harris, who's a converted receiver from Central Florida, number 87. He's 6'5", 220, and playing tight end now. He can't block me. But he is so athletic, and he's a seam. He goes down the seam. And 82, I call him Johnny Munn. I call him Johnny Buncake, number 82.
You call him that to his face?
No, I always come up with these nicknames to remember these players, so I don't forget about them.
Right.
But Darrell Henderson, of course, is filling in for Akers at running back. Jake Funk, man, I love this kid. He's number 34 in your program. He's vying to be the number 2 running back for fantasy if you're looking for the so-called handcuff to the starter. It's Xavier Jones and Funk. They're competing now for the number 2 job, and Funk is way more explosive. Jones, I talked to Funk after practice. He had 2 ACL injuries at Maryland, and also Matt Canada coached him, as he told me. So Matt Canada seems to coach everybody.
The Kevin Bacon of the NFL.
Exactly right. Exactly. It's a good one. Yeah. Exactly.
Real quick, Austin Corbett did not go to Penn State.
Where'd he go?
He went to Nevada. But
Nevada. I don't know why I thought he went to Penn State. Okay.
Penn State had a couple of Austins in the on the offensive and defensive line last year, so I was like, yeah, sure, sounds right.
Thank you.
But you said you had question marks about this team's secondary.
I do.
Because they lost John Johnson?
Yeah, that, and they really opposite Jalen Ramsey. Right now, it's going to be Darius Williams, who some teams think would be better as a nickel. I love Dante Dion. He was in Hard Knocks.
Yep.
He number 21. He's fun to watch. David Long was a third rounder at 19. I mean, they're just not good enough a corner opposite Ramsey. That's an area I would pick on if I'm an offensive coordinator from the other team. If safety now, as you mentioned, John Johnson's gone, so it'll be Taylor Rapp definitely will be starting. Terrell Burgess, who was a third rounder last year. They have another J.R. Reed, not the J.R. Reed formerly of the Eagles, but J.R. Reed, who's a undrafted free agent last year, who's trying to make the roster. But there's some questions in the secondary, no doubt. But you're right; they're really good. Pass rush rise at outside linebacker. Justin Hollins, who I like from the East West Shrine some years ago, formerly of Denver, he looks like he's starting at one spot at outside linebacker. They just need to get a little bit more juice out of outside linebacker, the pass rush. Donald's incredible, obviously. Watching him practice, he doesn't take a play off. He's incredible. They're good. You're right. They're an 11-ish, 10-ish win team. They'll be obviously be in the running for the NFC West, but you're right. They're really good.
What I like about their ability to win games, Adam, is that I think that they're going to have a really nice ball control offense. I mean, they have a chance to really take it easy on their defense by, Matthew Stafford's got a bunch of nice receivers. You mentioned it, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods. I like Van Jefferson. Thought he had a nice rookie year. The tight ends that they've relied on, the running game, even without, I know they had big plans for Cam Akers, who's out for the year.
Yeah.
But they'll be able to move the ball on the ground. And, of course, Matthew Stafford ahead of replacing Jared Goff. I just feel like this is going to be with McVay leading the way, they will be a time of possession type of team in offense. I don't think I know they've got Deshaun. I don't necessarily think they're going to be explosive, although he can
they'll be
open up one. But they will be able to work the ball down the field a whole lot.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, they could really win any way they want, whereas with Goff, I think they were limited. Right. They're going to take the reins off this thing now. Are they going to throw it 40 times a game? No, they don't have to, especially with their defense. I kind of know what you're talking about. Probably in the high 30s, though, 37, 38 attempts per game, which is above the average, and it's kind of where the game is going because we know it's a passing league.
Right.
And then Raheem Morris is a good D coordinator, formerly the Bucks head coach many years ago. Jody Camillus, the special teams coach, is excellent. You're right, man. They're really, really good.
Absolutely. All right, we want you to download the Deal Dash app or go to DealDash.com. It's the best online penny auction. You can register, use the promo code ITB, and you'll get some free bids to start bidding right away. That's promo code ITB TB. You register, you get some free bids on Deal Dash using the app or going to DealDash.com. So finishing off your West Coast trip was obviously the Chargers, who now have Brandon Staley, the former defensive coordinator for the Rams, as their head coach. Interesting team because it just feels like Justin Herbert. Everything I read, everything I see coming out of camp is that what you saw last year is not flukish. It seems like he's just kind of taken his spot there and is ready to lead this new look kind of team and new look offense.
My only issue here is, and you talk about Herbert and Staley. Joe Lombardi is a Sean Payton disciple. And he's a really good quarterbacks coach. Now, he unfortunately didn't work for him in Detroit. He was fired before his first season ended. This is going to be different from the last year's offense. So it's going to take some time. This offense, because it'll mirror Sean Payton's, they're going to be multiple, which means a lot of 11, a lot of 12. They'll go back and forth. The good thing is I think they've done a nice job. Their offensive line was awful last season. And despite that, or in spite of that, Herbert was the offensive rookie of the year. He was great. Rashawn Slater, my only issue with him is his arms. He's so talented, super smart, athletic, all that.
Is he at right or left tackle for them?
Left.
Wow.
That's why I brought him up. Matt Filer has been a great story, a former undrafted free agent with the Steelers out of Bloomsburg, by the way. At left guard, Lindsley, who the Cardinals, I'm told, wanted, and the Chargers beat him out for it. Right tackle's Bullock.
That's the former Packer center, correct?
Yes, correct. Corey Lindsley.
Yep.
Right. And then Ibushi's okay, right guard, number 76, formerly of the Lions. That's an advantage for the defense. And Bulaga's there at right tackle, who's fine. He'll be fine. Jared Cook is at tight end, who's still athletic at 34 years old. Donald Parham Jr. is a 6'8" backup tight end. I got to give them credit. This is yet another good job by Tom Telesco, their GM. Who I didn't even know this. He was actually with Detroit, Parham, in 19, and Washington's practice squad. But they found him last year, and he did a really good job. And he could be a successor to Cook. Cook's on a 1-year deal. You kind of know. And our guy Josh Palmer, who was their third receiver when I was in camp, he doesn't run fast, but he plays fast. Is probably the best way to say it.
Now, so they've got some pretty good weapons, right? Obviously, Keenan Allen, one of the best wide receivers in the league.
Incredible.
Mike Williams is yet to become the Mike Williams that we've seen, but he still can be a pretty good go-get-the-ball type of receiver. They got the guy who stretched the field a little bit for them last year. Guyton, was it?
Good call by you. Jalen Guyton, number 15. Yeah. Tyron Johnson, who's 83, who did some good things last year. He was hurt when I was there, and we know it's Eckler at running back. That's, everybody knows that if you follow the Chargers at all, but
I also like Josh Kelly, by the way. I thought their rookie last year had some nice looks last year.
Yeah, he's competing against Justin Jackson for the number 2 job and back at Eckler. But yeah, to answer your question on Williams, he's kind of underachieved. He's had some injuries. You're exactly right. He's a go get it, throw it downfield, physical guy. By the way, Ricky Prohl's son did really well when I was there. Austin Prohl, number 86.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he's backing up the slot. But overall, you're right there. They're loaded on offense, and defensively, it's just a question of Derwin James, who was awesome when I was there for the 2 days. He got a really nice highlight on Sports Center. They're better at corner. Asante Samuel Jr. is there, who could play inside or outside. As I said, they got James Buckminster Adderley from Delaware. So they're
how are they using Adderley, by the way? Is he starting with Derwin, or is he
he's starting opposite James. And here's what happened with Kenneth Murray last year, because some people had speculated. They're right. He struggled at times. What happened is when James got hurt, he wore the thing in his helmet. He was sort of he was sort of like the guy's going to run their defense for the players on the field, and it was just too much for him at one time. He's a very smart guy. It was just too overwhelming as a guy who had no offseason, no preseason. So I guess late in the season he started to play well. And Linval Joseph, talking to the Chargers, they said he graded out really well last season. Yeah. Number 98 is a great run stopper. You know about Joey Bosa.
Sure, I love this. I really like this D-line. And then, of course, with Brandon Staley, to have guys like Bosa and Tillery and Linval Joseph, I have high expectations for them.
Yeah, they're good, man. They're not going to be out the Chiefs. but they'll be right up there for. Remember, there's 7 teams that make the playoffs now. They'll be right up there with everyone to get that one of the wild cards.
Maybe better than the Raiders now. If
they're way better than the Raiders. Raiders defense.
Well, the Raiders seem to knock on the door and then they don't come in, and then they have an up year and a down year. But yeah.
They'll be a little better because the talent's better for Gus Bradley. Ironically, you mentioned Bradley was the Chargers D coordinator, but the Raiders will have a little bit better defense because there's more talent. Their offense will have to carry their defense. But yeah, that was my West Coast trip, and then we've got the Giants I was with on Monday. That was Barkley's game day back. They're taking it easy with him. Obviously, they're ramping him up because he had not practiced since last September when he got hurt. Galladay's dealing with a hamstring injury. Their issue, once again, offensive line, not very talented, not very good. They need to get Andrew Thomas played better in the second half of last season. Nate Solder's actually playing right tackle, not left. But what I would tell you is the same guys are back. Lemieux's back, Gates is back, Hernandez, Parrott. They're hoping he'll be the right tackle. They just they got to play better. As Greg Cosell said, it was very simple, but he's right. It's not that they haven't addressed this offensive line. They just got to play better. They haven't played very well.
No, that's a fair statement. They need to play better. They've been trying to get that line to play better for a while. At some point, it probably will. I like what the Giants have defensively. I think that they're very, very sound from top to bottom.
Yeah, their line, and boy, Patrick Graham has done a great job as their D coordinator. He'll be a head coaching candidate. The only issues that I have is pass rush at outside linebacker. They run a 34 hybrid between Lorenzo Carter, Jimenez, Ojulari. I know the guy they're very high on. Was a second rounder this year, but they just have not gotten a lot from for their pass rush. And then, at corner, they're deep. But to be honest with you, the Titans were terrible at corner last year, did not want Adoree Jackson back. And they're paying Jackson well over $10 million a season. He's
a gamble.
Yeah, I didn't like that one at all. Now they're great at safety. They're the deepest team in the National Football League at safety between Peppers, Ryan, McKinney, and Julian Love. But man, they're another team. Like, you could exploit them, no question about it, at corner opposite James Bradbury, who's really good.
Yes, definitely. They'll be an interesting team to watch. They have a lot of boom bust type potential.
Yep.
Let's talk about the Bears. I know you finished off you're finishing off your tour with a trip in Chicago. I think a lot of people a couple months ago thought the Bears were a dumpster fire, but people are starting to come around because they do have some good players on defense. And for me, Adam, you were out there. The big question is, I know that they're not going to start Justin Fields, but it's hard to ignore all the positive press that he's gotten so far. I mean, do you think that there's a point soon, not soon, I mean, early in the season where they just say, we got to go to this guy?
I would say a couple things off that. It's going to come down to what's their record, how well are they doing. Now, the Dolphins is something interesting, which you rarely see, that in the middle of a playoff race, they pulled Fitzpatrick, they went with Tua. You just don't see that very much.
Right.
The Bears believe they're going to be a playoff team because their roster's better. However, we'll start on offense. Their line has got issues. I mean, I was kind of stunned that they cut their right tackle, Morgan Moses. I mean, I'm sorry, Washington cut their Morgan Moses. I'm just surprised
they cut Leno, right?
They cut Leno. I'm sorry, Charles Leno. Now they talking to them, they felt that they need to move on. He maybe he's on the downside of his career. But here's my question. Well, okay, Tevin Jenkins, they drafted him to be the left tackle. I get that. Unfortunately, he's dealing with, I think, a back injury.
It's weird because he didn't even play left tackle at Oklahoma State. I thought he was a right tackle at Oklahoma State, which is if you're not playing left tackle in college, hard to see you making that. I don't want to say hard, but usually you don't see that happen at the NFL level right away.
Yeah, and look, he was drafted to be their left tackle, and he's got a back issue, which Matt Nagy said they knew about. That's fine, but right now he's not available. They don't really have anyone. I mean, Elijah Wilkinson's more of a right tackle than a left tackle. They've got him available. They'll be okay. They're decent in the interior. They're bringing all these guys back. Whitehair back. Mustafa is a great find for them as an undrafted free agent out of Notre Dame 2 years ago. And James Daniels, who's good. He can play center or guard, but I believe he's going to play guard. And then Alex Bars is another undrafted free agent, and Juan Castillo, by the way, is coaching him. Juan, so they like Juan, and the difference. But let's get to the quarterbacks because you mentioned Fields and whether they, what they would do at quarterback in the regular season. the first thing that you see with watching this week, Fields versus Dalton in practice versus the Dolphins, Fields could snap it off. I mean, Dalton's more of a very deliberate timing, rhythm quarterback. He doesn't have a strong arm. It's adequate. It's fine. It's above average, but he can make the necessary throws. He doesn't have a gun like Fields. There is a throw that he threw it to the tight end through traffic. The thing I love about him, his vision's really good. He has really good footwork. He saw the rush. He moved to his right, and he said, "I'm not going to worry about that defender that's covering the tight end. I'm still going to throw the football." And he got it to the tight end. I love that about him. Now, did he have some issues, like make some mental errors or have some mental errors? Yeah, sure. That's going to happen as a rookie quarterback. But right away, you see why they drafted him in the first round, why they traded up for him. Then Dalton, boy, I love the way when he gets in a rhythm, he sees the field really, really well, and he's coached by obviously Bill Lazor, John DeFilippo, and Matt Nagy. So they're this is a good group of coaches, and Nick Foles will be the three. It's funny they declared after picking Nick Foles' roster bonus up and unable to trade him. They were not able to find someone to take his contract. It's tradable though because they paid us $4 million. They only owe him $4 million in cash and in base salary. So maybe someone calls, and if someone loses a quarterback, maybe he's moved. But Fields is the 2, and Dalton's the 1, and they love this Darnell Mooney, number 11 for fantasy. He's one of my breakout players.
Nice deep threat, yeah. Vertical
exactly
stretches the field.
Exactly right, and he actually had one where they just missed. This is the thing with them. The Bears said that. There were a lot of plays last year where either the line couldn't protect the quarterbacks or the quarterbacks could not get to Mooney accurately. Your guy, A-Rob from Penn State, is still doing it, number 12. He's great. And they bring in Damiere Byrd, formerly of New England, off the bench as a deep threat. And Riley Ridley, he's okay. He's a possession receiver. His brother's with the Falcons, and that's their offense. Damian Williams is going to be the 2. They don't know when Tariq Cohen's coming back. He's on PUP, come back from the ACL reconstruction.
Their running back came on at the end of last year, Montgomery, right? I mean, I thought
he's good. David Montgomery's
last
good.
4 or 5 games and started to look like a number 1 guy. They'll get to ride him.
Yep, at Ohio State. He's a good football player. He's definitely their starter, number 32. Who can catch the ball. He's just not explosive, and that's why they really miss David Montgomery. But when I was there at practice,
you mean they missed Tariq Cohen, right?
Yeah, they do badly as a change-up, man. He's so good in that role.
Yeah.
They need his juice to their offense. But speaking of juice, Fields' arm, he's got juice in that arm. I should mention that he's got it. But Damian Williams is the backup. Khalil Herbert got a lot of run, number 24, who's a 6th rounder out of Virginia Tech. Although Williams is the number 2 running back right now. He was getting some run with the 2s. And then to finish the Bears off, defensively, they're going to – Sean Desai, who went to Temple, by the way, he is their D coordinator. He is now going to run more of the Vic Fangio defense and the Chuck Pagano, so they'll be more aggressive. A lot of pre-snap disguise. So they'll be good. They need to get Robert Quinn going, number 94, who signed an enormous contract. And Khalil Mack, who did not have a typical Khalil Mack type of year last year. Didn't practice very much due to some minor injuries. The player to watch, one of all-time – now, this is an all-time name, okay? Have you ever heard of Kindle Vildor?
Yeah, I feel like I have for some. Vildor, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, he was a 5th rounder last year at a Georgia Southern, a top sleeper of the draft. This is a great find by Ryan Pace. They love this kid. Desmond Trufant is obviously what his days are kind of behind him. He turns 31 in September. He's had a lot of injuries. He's not played really good football. He's back. In fact, he's been on IR 3 out of the last 5 years. He's been on injury reserve. He's just not the same player. The Lions didn't want him back, and they're bad at corner. That tells you a lot.
Yeah.
Kind of surprised that they signed him, but
I loved him earlier in his career.
He was great. I mean, Marcus. Some people want to argue with me on Marcus versus Dez, but Vildor is a good story, and Eddie Jackson's back. Deshaun Gibson's back, who's a really smart, tough football player. Jalen Johnson, our guy, we interviewed last year up to the draft. Great kid, had a big interception.
Yeah, I have expectations for him in year 2 because I thought he played well last year.
Yep. So, and Roquan Smith at inside linebacker, Danny Trevathan is still around and formerly of Denver. So their defense will be good. They got to get Akeem Hicks going, though.
Yeah.
Number 96.
He's too good not to have a great year.
Right. Who did not have a good year. So they'll be good. They'll be somewhere on 9 or 10 wins.
All right. I mean, to me, their big question is they've got 4 games against the Vikings and the Lions. Can they go 3-1 and then try to steal one from
From the
Green Bay?
Packers. Yeah, that's a great point.
Just try.
Yeah.
If you can go 3-1 against the other two teams, you align yourself to at least make that one of those last playoff spots, especially if you can steal one from Green Bay.
And then
go ahead.
Nope, no, I was just going to say the Dolphins.
All right, before we get to the Dolphins, always want to tell our friends, go check out our friends at Sky Motor Cars. Go to their website, skymotorcars.com, or visit them out in Westchester. Whether you're buying or looking to trade in a vehicle, you'll get the best deal. Just tell them Adam and Jeff sent you. That's skymotorcars.com. All right, Dolphins, because you saw the Dolphins with the Bears, right? That was a joint practice.
Correct. They had 2 days. They had 2 days with them. I'll tell you, their front office, Chris Greer and his staff have done a great job. This is one of the most loaded rosters I've seen. I mean, I don't know that Allen Hurns at receiver will start with them. I don't know that Allen Hurns is going to make it because Devontae Parker, Will Fuller, who's got to sit out one game through his suspension, but Albert Wilson also. Yep. Right now, it's going to be Jalen Waddle and Parker as your two starting receivers. Fuller will play plenty, and he could flat out fly. Mm-hmm. Matt Collins only plays on special teams. Jakeem Brand is like a sort of a joker receiver. Mm-hmm. Remember, Lynn Bowden had a bunch of targets last year coming over for that crazy Raiders trade. The Raiders gave up on him very early. Mm-hmm. And Preston Williams has been hurt. He had been on PUP, so I don't know. We'll see. They're a very loaded receiver, and they've got decent tight end group. And Gesicki, who just came off the COVID list. Adam Shaheen is only a former Bear, only a blocker. Hunter Long and Durham Smythe. Gaskin was a great find for them at running back, number 37. Tell you what, I did not know much about him. He's from Washington, University of Washington. He's explosive. Now, the question for him is, for fantasy, he's more of a low-end number 2 back. I don't think he's going to duplicate what he did last year. He came out of nowhere to put up those numbers. But Malcolm Brown, who's a more physical back, will back him up. Mm-hmm. Their line is they're all back, plus Liam Eichenberg, a second-rounder, who I know they're really excited about out of Notre Dame. All their line's back. So Matt Skurs over from Baltimore to play center.
So it's all about Tua, right? I mean, his development here.
Yeah,
he's got some weapons.
Right. To me, it's funny because what I did was they had seat risers like they have stands so you're above the field, so you could see the Dolphin offense and Bear defense and the opposite on the other field. So I stood in the middle on the stands. And I was just watching both quarterbacks throw at the same time, and Fields' arm is so much better into it. Tua is another Andy Dalton type timing rhythm guy. He's a pretty good athlete.
Right.
He just doesn't have a very good arm, and he has trouble driving the football. And let's not forget, folks, they've been monitoring the Sean Watson stuff. So that we'll see what happens with Tua's future after this season. But they have a chance to be outstanding on offense. Defensively, they're loaded. Mm-hmm. Their offensive line their defensive line isn't great. I do wonder. They're another hybrid 34. It's more about outside linebacker where they're going to get their pass rush.
Right.
But we'll see there. Now, corner, they're super deep. They took care of the Xavier Howard issue. They restructured his contract. They made him happy for now. They're really deep at corner.
Sure.
The only issue is in back of Howard. They have depth, but it's not proven depth. But they're super deep. They're like 3 deep at nickel. Crevon LeBlanc is there.
Well, they're doing the Belichick copycat system of loading up on defensive backs.
Yeah,
they've been doing obviously Byron Jones. They paid all that money too. So that's
with Howard.
It's less about the individual pass rushers now, and more about manufacturing the rush and having a lot of playmakers in the secondary
on the back end. Right, Justin Coleman is nickel. Eric Rowe, another former Eagle who's playing safety now.
Yeah, he actually played fairly well at safety, if I'm not mistaken, last year.
In fact, he got that extension a couple of years ago. Jason McCourty comes over. Yeah, they are unbelievably deep at corner. In secondary. The question is up front, can they get a pass rush? But as you said, it's never about the individual players. That's exactly what the epitome of a New England-style defense is. They don't really have super high-end pass rushers. Remember, they traded Chandler Jones away years ago.
Right.
So although there was some minor off the field stuff, but that wound up being a disaster. He's been great. That they never should have traded. When I say disaster, disaster that they traded him. He's been a star.
Yep.
They're good. Yeah, look, they're right there. Buffalo's better, but they're right there. Miami, from a talent standpoint, they're right there.
Absolutely. All right. Well, the big takeaway we went through 3, 6, 8 teams here is that Washington, Pittsburgh, and Chicago, all good teams that could really use a little offensive line help.
Yep.
So it makes you kind of wonder, get the wheels in motion, spinning in your head around that waiver cut line, what these GMs have in mind as far as trying to acquire some last-minute offensive line help at the deadline before they get into the regular season. That was comprehensive, man. Thank you for all that. I think that we got a lot on fantasy, a lot on depth, a lot on, some of these teams who have made major improvements from last year to this year. So a lot of good teams. Are there any teams you have left to see before the end of camp here?
I mean, Giants, I did. I was there with the Giants, but I'm going to see them again. We'll talk about them the next time. Yeah, so I'm going to.
You'll see the Jets, right? Because you'll go to an Eagles-Jets joint practice?
Yeah, Eagles-Patriots, Eagles-Jets.
Right.
One more Giants because I want to see them in pads. Maybe Washington. One more Cleveland, maybe. Okay. I want to get out west. I want to see the Niners and the Seahawks. Mm-hmm. Maybe the Raiders. It's just going to be hard because the scheduling is difficult. If I can, I can't. But I'd like to get out there. But or Jacksonville and Tennessee, maybe. This tour is only going to be 14 or 15 teams. I've done 24 is my number, the best I've done, I did it over 3 weeks, only coming home twice, which is ridiculous. Only time I've ever done laundry on the road was that trip. Not fun. Absolutely hated doing laundry on the road.
That nobody likes to do that. All right, well, good. If you get those other teams in, we can definitely do a part 2. So big thank you to you for all the effort that you've put in on your training camp tour. Next week, we'll be back with maybe either an Ask ITB or we'll have a guest lined up. We'll let you know soon. So the next podcast from Inside the Birds will drop Monday morning, 6 a.m. We'll have plenty to cover. For Adam Caplan, I'm Jeff Mosher. Thanks for watching the most recent ITB TV. Catch you on the next one.